Good evening to the Netherlands and good afternoon to America. Wonderful to have a bilateral audience. My name is Carine Meyere and I'm a member of the board of the Global Board, International Board of Netherland-America Foundation. And this year is a very special year for the NAF because we are celebrating our 100th year anniversary. And with that, we are so proud that we are actually going to be able to honor and award 2 females in 2 days in Washington, of which I'm very, very excited to be able to interview one today, Marguerite Soeteman-Reijnen. And this is actually the first Fireside Chat interview of hopefully a series which I'm going to be doing many, many more of this coming year, because we really want to highlight women from the past history, but actually also currently women who are making a real big impact between the Netherlands and America and who can really serve as role models, as potential sponsors and as mentors. So Marguerite, welcome. You and I are actually currently based in the same country, which was not the case at all for the last 15 months. You were in the Netherlands and I was actually first living in New York, and then because of COVID, I had to move to Costa Rica, but we were in contact with each other a lot. And I saw you doing amazing things. Well, first of all, you know, you're the chairman of the executive board of Aon Holdings. You're also the global CMO of Aon Inpoint. Then you're on numerous boards. I know you're on the American Chamber of Commerce. You're also on the Alumni board of the Harvard Business School, a alma mater that we share. But actually, I have actually come to get to know you much better the last couple of years as the new chairman of the SER Topvrouwen. And I think you're doing an incredible job there. I mean, you are everywhere. You're all over the place. I sometimes think, how does she do it? Because you have a, you know, more than full-time job. And well, you're also a mother of 2, a wonderful boy and a wonderful girl. And we also share that same passion because our children went to the same Atlantic College in Wales. So of course, when I had proposed to the board, you know, that I wanted to interview you, it was of course very much also because I think you are a role model that women can really aspire to, because you are so incredibly down to earth and you're so easy approachable. And very often with like role models, it is a little bit like they are being put on a pedestal by people, but people cannot really relate to them. And with you, when I've really gotten to know you better, I always felt, wow, she is like one of us. And she's really out there to help me, and she's really out there to help other women. And so I would really like to sort of hear from you, first of all, because I just actually mentioned the word sponsor, but did you have a real sponsor in your career who has actually helped you and maybe helped you even get you to the point where you are today?
So I've had many people in my life who've been very instrumental in where I've gotten today. I think first and foremost, always these are your parents. The way you're being raised is setting an example for us as children. And but I've also always had in my private life my husband. I think it's very important that, you know, the person who you choose to live with has a bigger impact maybe than some people realize on the way your career is actually evolving. And I've always had very close relationship with my sister, who's always been able to benchmark me and to leverage for things if we wanted to talk about things. Back to the business aspect, to be honest, I've had too few sponsors, Carine. There have been people who've been very instrumental in the way I've evolved and how I've developed myself. But if I take a look back now and take a look at what I would have wished for, yeah, but there also have been too few. And I think that's maybe the best to say, that there are people who are really supportive, but there can be more. And it's about, for me, the motto then is also, you know, do good and you will be treated good, if you know what I mean. That's what we say in Dutch, wie goed doet, goed ontmoet. And so in the business life, I think I've had too few, to be honest.
Okay, because I remember, I mean, I was reading a couple of the interviews with you in the past, and you're very focused. And apparently at a very young age, you always said, I want to go to the top. Yeah. But I mean, there's a huge difference between wanting something and actually reaching that, because I've actually met more women. I mean, as you know, I went to a women's college, I studied women's studies. So I've actually met a lot of women who had that mission, but they never made it to the top. So yeah. Why did you make it?
And I think it's stubbornness and perseverance. It's a good combination, maybe sometimes unhealthy combination of both. But also because I've always wanted to, I think that you mentioned already Harvard Business School. I think what we have in common is we're always keen to learn and to adapt to what's going on around you, to take it in, to take a look what happens. And that willingness to learn has been one of the most important aspects of my career. I've never stopped learning. I still continue to learn. But also to take a look and listen to what others have to say. So the engaging with others, and maybe that's back to the modesty. I take my business serious, but I don't take myself too serious.
And can you give an example of that, if you say that you don't take yourself serious?
I always like to smile, so I think humor is one of the best elements you can encounter. If people would, if you would ask people who's Marguerite, I think I'm always in whatever situation might meet myself. And I really liked, Carine, the email. I think I would like to mention it to you. You sent me an email a few weeks ago, and it was such an email with a quote of Oscar Wilde, which says, "Be yourself because all other roles are taken." And that I already mentioned it when you sent me that email. I said, this is such a good quote because it's so important that everyone, each individual needs to be able to be him or herself in order to actually have the strengths of him or her being given to the world. And I've at a young age, I've also discovered that being myself was not always something people were looking for, because some people like it, some people don't. So be it. But I've learned to be myself with my pros and cons and balance the cons against the many hopefully pros. And that's given me a lot of strength, and people surrounding me have always helped me to become like that.
Wonderful, incredible. So actually you are in a business that I grew up with, because my father was in the insurance business. Yeah. I do not once remember that there was a female on a high level position. So, I mean, you have actually chosen an industry which is, especially as you got hired to the hires, that you probably did not have a lot of female colleagues. Is that a right perception I have?
Yeah, so in the beginning when I started in insurance, that was in 1990 after my law degree, I started in reinsurance broking, not many females. And when Aon acquired the company I was working for in 1997, I ended up in an international environment of white male men. I stood out because I was assertive. I knew what I wanted. I was able to express myself in English. I'd been around at the globe in various circumstances. And I like to laugh. I like to engage. But also, I didn't dress at the time, the appropriate black or blue English or American standards of how to get dressed in business life. I've encountered, because of that, challenges, but also at the end of the day, I met a lot of people, and I think that growing where I'm now today, that's what I meant when I said I hope that other women don't encounter some of the barriers I've encountered, because it's extremely important that you're being sponsored, you're being helped. If there's something which is a challenge, you're being helped. And to give an example, in my role as Chief Broking Officer, and also before that in 2005-06, managing relationships with insurers around the globe, I traveled a lot, and I encountered sometimes social differences between, for example, what's the common practice in Russia compared to Japan. And especially in countries like Japan, which wasn't used to women and still is very, very conservative around women. I remember standing in a hotel, which was an international hotel. But I wanted to order a taxi, and I was used to simply say to the porter, order me a taxi, and nothing happened. They were not used to women telling them that the taxi should be ordered. So with that whole journey around the globe, I've learned a lot of different circumstances, and it's still interesting to watch that. If you take a look, for example, in India, still only 12% of the females are working. 88% is at home. So the norm there is still not that women work. And so I think adjusting to those different circumstances, taking them in and making it work together has made me the person who I am today. We
have often spoken about the word diversity and inclusion. We were both present at an event in September. I think it was the first and actually also the last live business event we had at the Rise and Lead Summit. what does the word diversity mean to you, and how have you seen it actually work for you in a positive way?
Yeah, I stood out because of the way I dressed. I already mentioned that, and the way I was able to drink beers with the guys. I was one of the guys. That was because I studied in a city in the Netherlands, Rotterdam, where we were used to hang out with the guys. How did I distinguish? What's diversity? So diversity for me is an interesting one. If you talk about diversity and inclusion, the question is, do you need to be inclusive in order to get a diverse environment in place, or is it the other way around? So this is like a chicken and egg situation. Diversity and inclusion are for me chicken and egg. Who's first? I don't know, but it's both something we need. Diversity, if you ask me to define it, it's about the numbers, the statistics. Do we have women in place? Do we have gender diversity in place? Do we have ethnic minorities in place? How is it organized? Is it organized? Is there a strategy to get those people in the places they should be getting? And then cultural inclusion is for me really the culture of a firm and a company. Do they allow the diversities to flourish? Do they allow the diversity to add their value to the firm? And I was earlier today with two people who wrote a book, and they described diversity as a painter who uses only one color, and they defined inclusion, a painter who uses all the colors at its palette to make that fantastic painting. And I really like that definition, because if you really want to stand out with a beautiful painting with colors, you should be able to use all colors and not only one.
Okay, okay. Have you felt that by actually appointing more women within Aon, I mean, I would assume that you're also a champion, you know, within your own organization. Have you seen the financial benefits of that within your company? Because I mean, I study women's studies, as you know, and one of my professors, unfortunately, he's no longer alive, Richard Hackman, he wrote a book called Leading Teams. And, you know, in Holland, you always hear companies talking about the gender parity and, you know, it needs to be 50-50. And, you know, I think Accenture is one of those, and DSM. But I mean, Richard Hackman actually saw that even if you have 30 or 40% women within organizations, especially at like top level, that already has a huge impact, both emotionally as spiritually, but also financially. I mean, have you seen examples of that within your company, that every time you appointed more women?
Yeah, so first and foremost, the 30% number, you mentioned the 30-40%. So for people not so familiar with the topic on diversity, 30% is the moment when you have a 30% participation of a group of whether it's females or ethnic minorities, when those differences in voices are being heard and received. And that's a sort of research done by NautaDutilh. So that 30% number is an important number. Out of the 10 people in the executive board, there should be at least 3 women before the women's voice is really heard and received. How does the work in the practical and at Aon? We've also been to stages. So, and the stages can be good and can be wrong. So what do I mean with that? So if you define a strategy, then it's really difficult to get the strategy in place. So also there we've had our challenges, because, you know, you're sometimes looking at regions where women are simply not the common practice, and other regions where it's easy to find it. And I think if you ask me what the past year has shown, so let me make a different analogy here. What the pandemic has shown, that meaningful change, that you need to do that by thunder and lightning. And what do I mean by that? If you want real change, then what happened the past year, we were forced to make the change. And so that's why I'm also in favor of a quotum, because you're forcing people, if we've tried and it hasn't worked out with a thunder and lightning approach, you force them to make that change. And the past year also on things like digitization and all the things we all know, transformation of companies into the new world, has seen it only when you have a sudden impactful event like the pandemic, that it has really proven that we can make that meaningful change. And for me, I've seen also on diversity and inclusion, a lot of companies, I've seen positives like NASA, who put a strategy in place, lived up to it, and they ended up with a class of 13 astronauts, of which 50% was women. Class 22, the Turtles. I love them. I love the name the Turtles. It's so nice to be. I've also seen practices where they put a strategy in place and they managed it in a project management way. And then, of course, always there will be barriers and something won't go right and wrong. And then instead of counterattacking it, it was okay, then we go back. So another example of this is also the past year when people said, okay, the pandemic has hit us, we need to now manage everything, so we will stop hiring female execs. We first need to get everything in order. And we're going to do that with the execs of the past. Are the execs of the past, are they enabled to manage the questions and the challenges and the doubts of the future? Could be, could also not be.
Yeah, interesting that you say that. This is maybe another funny question, but I am going to say it to you. Do you feel that being a woman, that it's always been in your advantage? Or, I mean, when you look back on your career, do you feel that there have been moments that it was actually to your disadvantage?
Now, I've definitely felt that there have been plenty of moments it's been a disadvantage, but also an advantage. I think that what is really, I've started some end, I've seen also the disadvantage, but some end I started to look at it from an element that I said, okay, let's take the positive end, because if you always pay too much attention to the negative end, so I like to define this. For me, it's like, I like to be an optimist. So I'd like to see in every difficulty a challenge. And I've learned to stay away from being the pessimist, which is seeing in every opportunity a difficulty. And sometimes it's tough because sometimes you feel like, oh, what's going on? But I've learned to give a lot of honey, and still I can also bring an acid message, but I think it's important. And I'm actually even doing this with my children at the moment. They say, if you take a positive attitude, people will remember you for a positive feeling. And even when you have a difficult message to bring, they will still be surrounded with the positivity which they use from you to get. So, but it's back to how I've encountered my own challenges. I definitely have encountered them. So was I always happy to be a woman? No, because I saw that sometimes, the men were easier getting things done, or the male voices were listened to. And my female voice was often sometimes being ignored. All those things you can hear about stereotyping and unconscious bias in meetings. We all know them by now, I think, or I hope everybody knows them. But at the end of the day, for me, Carine, it's not so much about being a female or a male. It's about, I think that we've seen the past year that leadership requires masculine and feminine traits. And so it's about empathy, authenticity, knowing what you're talking about. And we all know that's just, this, you're smiling because you also know Professor Frances Fry. This is what she gave me when I was at HBS a few years ago. And I really truly believe that it's important to surround you and collaborate with people and together create trust in this world where there's often a lot of distrust.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, and I think that it's so wonderful to hear about everything that you've done, because, I mean, in 2 days' time, you're going to be in Washington and you're going to be awarded the William Middendorf II Award. I happen to know William Middendorf, Bill Middendorf. He is for his intimate. What does this award mean to you? And what are you going to do with this award?
Now, I think first and foremost, I think it's amazing to get an award with this is prestigious. I can't call it differently. The greatest momentum for me was to be able to tell your parents, to share this news with your parents, which they are 82, 83, and that's really, for me, the most meaningful of all. My husband, of course, who's always been there to support me, my children, and I think what I really like was when I went into the history of Bill Middendorf, and you know him, so I really hope that I'm able to meet him. He's been in Navy. My husband has been in the Navy, as you know. I'm also on the military museums in the Netherlands, so I have my naval connection confirmed. He's a composer. He loves culture, which I think is amazing. He was in business with Colgate, so there are different elements which come back in this representation of this award. And I think what's really besides all of this, I think. I'm very honored, really honored, to be the first businesswoman in the Netherlands to receive this award. And I take it also that, I do hope that in my footsteps and on my shoulders, I invite everybody to go and stand on them, because that's what's really helping other people, to stand on the shoulders of some others. And I think that for me, it's really about that. It's about an award which acknowledges that what I try to do is always to help other people. And I'm at an age now where some people say, Marguerite, you know, you're still ambitious. And I said, yes, I am. But I really, at the moment when I'm making other people successful, I really enjoy that. I've had some people who've moved out to international departments of Aon around the globe who are doing extremely well. And that's the biggest gift you can get if you really are able to help other people succeed to pursue their ambitions.
Yeah, and I think that's a passion that we share. I mean, as you know, for the last 2 years, I was very much involved with the Women in Technology Global Movement. Yeah. And that movement really was launched in the Netherlands 2 years ago. And the success really was because it turned out women were looking for new role models. And it turned out that we were able to actually create that and be that for them. And I think every time when I hear of a woman that I have been a mentor for or a sponsor for, and when I hear that she's having an amazing success, it always makes me happy. I'm like, well, you know, because it's all energy. Everything, you know, all the work that we do is energy. So this is always a question that I usually ask when I interview people. What is your why? Why do you think you do everything that you do?
Now, I like change. So I'd like evolution. I don't take things for granted. I like to challenge. And at the end of the day, I think I just like Fireside Soeteman-Reijnen, as you know, I've interviewed him for Topvrouwen last year, which was an amazing interview. He's one of the most inspirational persons I've met in my life. He said to me, like, Marguerite, I want to leave the world having made it a little bit better than the way I found it. And that's something I really like. And the interesting part of this statement is that we all are being born as we are. We will die one day. And in between, there is a mission for us to be a happy person in this earth, but also to contribute to this planet. And we often think that can be done by doing things with monetary, you know, with profits, etc. I think in the meantime, more and more people have started to learn, like, okay, we've seen that health is extremely important. Your people are your most important assets in the office. How do you manage that in the office? Human capital solutions has become really tremendously important. We've seen last year that the pandemic was one of the things which came across, but also racial injustice in the US. I think those two topics have wakened us all up to take a bigger look at, okay, why are we here for? And if you ask my why is to help other people, maybe my why is to give happiness to everyone I can give happiness to with the means and the tools I've been giving. I'm privileged, you know, to have received education. Many others around the globe don't get education. So to help other people having those means and tools too. And to make them happy, give them something to eat, you know. It sounds simple, but I think those simple things at the end of the day is what really makes our heart beat. And trigger our thoughts on how things should be.
Absolutely. So are there still things that you're dreaming of?
I saw a statement here next to where I live. I was driving yesterday to do some shopping, and I really like the statement. It says, like, in my wildest dreams, the statement was that in my wildest dreams, I decided to do this. I didn't, you know, that also I've done things which I never thought I could do. So the messaging here is that if you ask me what are your dreams still, they have nothing to do with business. They have to do with really studying art, you know, history of art. I love that. I did it the past months. I've always liked to help children, pursue children. I see a lot of still, if you take a look at what's happening around the globe, you see a lot of differences becoming larger differences. You know, rich, poor, we all know what's going on. If you take a look at what's going on with climate change. I'm now also a Supervisory Board member of Kelp Blue. That's a company who likes, you know.
Samantha Dean, correct?
Yeah, Kelp, yeah. It's Kelp and it's in Namibia. Try to rewild the oceans. So I have an open eye for all those things, and wherever I can help and contribute. And this is what my parents really told me. They've always said, use your potential, not for your own sake, but for others. If you do it only for yourself, nice, But if you have, if you're able to help others, that's what is really important. And I think that's something which has been a red line in my whole life.
Well, of course, we heard a lot about all your successes, but have there been moments in your life or things that didn't go so well, or that you actually may have learned more from?
Yeah, I think my biggest failures are failure creates character. I have had lots of failures. So, and I do think that the failures are those moments in life which are determining how you react. So I've also been in situations, whether it's in business or other things which came across which didn't go right for whatever reason. And then the question is, how do you react? And often we're afraid to fail. And so I say, like, fear is a reaction and courage is a decision. And we've learned the word courage for us at HBS means a lot, leading with courage. I think that's really important to realize that something, when it doesn't go right, take a look what happens, have the situational awareness to take all those elements in, and then evaluate and then decide what's next. And don't be afraid to fail. I think failure creates character.
Absolutely. So I'm not certain if you had that course as well at HBS, but I followed the course on power and influence. If you hear these two words, which word resonates most with you?
Influence. Yeah, power. I saw, now I don't know the quote of Lincoln. He said, if you want to know how a person really is, what he is, what kind of wood he's made of, then give him power. If you want to truly get to know a person, take a look whether he can influence. Because power is about something you want yourself. Influence is but how you can make other people. For me, influence is really letting other people do what is best because they want to follow you. Power is because you have the power of them, which can be very limited. And we've always learned that leading is, if you lead, if you're really a good leader, you're able to influence people to that extent that even when you're no longer around, they will still follow, the journeys and the roads you draw for them.
We were just talking about climate change and sustainability. Are you able, as chairman of Aon, are you able to actually influence your supply chain? I mean, do you feel that you have influence on the people that, are actually outside your influence sphere, but still that you're actually dependent on? How do you do that?
I think that what you see at the moment, if you talk about climate change, is the big discussion, also given the recent Shell case here, court case in the Netherlands. So for me, it's about how can we make this world, how can we together achieve those targets which were set by the Paris Agreement. And environmental, social, and governance are very instrumental elements of strategies, also in the insurance and financial services world at the moment. There are already even countries, New Zealand and the UK, where financial services companies have to report about what they actually do in order to help the world get into carbon net zero. As an insurance world, we can support it. And I think that it's really important to help that transition go as cleverly and solid as it can. And in that respect, as an insurance industry, we play a very important role to make that happen. And it's an interesting one because if you talk about environmental, social, and governance, I feel that still a lot of companies are looking for guidance because it's a big thing. Those three words actually mean everything what's going on in the world at the moment. Environmental is really climate change, social is racial injustice, governance, how are things structured, what's capitalism. And so those things interacting with each other, the interconnectivity of those three words is tremendous. And the impact to all of us is just simply too big to be true. So managing it carefully and doing it cleverly together, I think is really important.
When you hear the word technology, how does that resonate with you? I mean, you know that I'm very much passionate about it, and I've always been very focused on actually empowering women through technology because I've seen actually their lives improve. How has actually technology impacted you, and how are you using it within your work?
Yeah, so technology for me, if you ask me what's technology, my next sentence is catalyst for change. Technology for me at the moment, if you ask another word, is speed. You look at it like in business, for me, in insurance, cyber is one of those risks which everybody has come across the past year. That develops with such huge speed. It's almost that you look like, how can we keep up? Every day, today, we might have discovered a solution for one cyber risk, and it might already be overhauled in 1 hour because of the speed with which happens. So adapting to technology is very important. And I like to, because we're in the US audience, I like to quote Jack Welch, and this is one quote I have close to my heart and close to my mind. And it's like, you really need to be aware of all the changes surrounding you and adapt to that change. Because if you don't, if the pace of change outside your company is bigger than the pace inside your company of change, then you might no longer be relevant. And I think for all of us, whether you're in insurance or in technology or wherever you are in, you need to make sure you remain relevant and that you actually have a customer-centric approach, that your clients recognize themselves, not only because of diversity perspective, recognize themselves in what you're doing and what you're trying to get established.
Okay. So Aon is a global company. Do you feel that the business that you do in the US compared to Europe, is it very, very different? How do you relate to that?
No, so we publish every year, what we call a global risk management survey. And we then look at the risks which are present around the globe. And we analyze them. We as Aon and also as Inpoint, a management consultancy, we collect a lot of data and we analyze them and provide insights using those data. And what we see is that of the 69 risks identified, pandemic was 2 years ago only number 60. You can't imagine the word pandemic not being in the top 10 anymore. The same with cyber. Those risks have become so prominently, vividly on each and every eye. But you do see that those risks differ per region. So some risks are pretty prominently identified across the European space, but are differently interpreted in South America or in Asia. So it's important to have a good eye about the differences and similarities. And that's what we really try to keep up with as best as we can and provide those different clients also with the solutions which really meet their requirements.
Okay, all right. So, why do you think that you are at the realm of your company? I mean, what is it, especially in you, that you actually made it to that position?
A very positive mindset. I always always look at the bright side of life, Monty Python, almost in a radical manner. Especially meeting all the people. I've met a lot of people during all my years at Aon, and back to the US-Netherlands relationships in various manners. I was today talking about it with some people, like, so tell me, what did you say? I met Magic Johnson, at a dinner in Aon. I met Lewis Hamilton. I met Hillary Clinton. I've been extremely privileged. I met Louis Pinard, who was one of those South African rugby players, Invictus, Nelson Mandela. So if you take a look, and it's all about people. I think what's my why? Because you were asking me what's my why, and I still have to think about it even a few minutes later. It's people. People are those which are, each and every individual is unique. And the reason why diversity is also so interesting for me is because you're celebrating diversity, and you're celebrating the uniqueness of each individual. And it's just very inspirational. I think the curiosity, I'm always curious, and I think, why does he do, or why does she do that or that? So an ongoing journey in curiosity, I would say. Okay.
10 years down the road, where is Marguerite Soeteman-Reijnen?
I'm still working. I've talked to my husband about it, because then I said, like, in 10 years time, in the Netherlands, we now have a retirement age of 68. And when I say I'm going to stop, and he will be retiring, he's a pilot already in 7-8 years time. He says, I won't retire, I will keep flying. And when he says, like, I said, oh, retire too, he says, no way, he will never retire. I don't think I will. I really like to learn. So I met yesterday also a lady who's also in a House of Lords in the Senate. And she had that same a curious approach to everything, talking to people, finding out what he, she does, connecting things together. And with the speed of change which we see at the moment, I think there will never be a dull moment. So there's opportunity. And I think that's also back to your asked question about risks. The risks provide so many opportunities for us to do business. And as Aon, we love to empower human and economic possibility in that.
Okay. So are there things that you have changed during the pandemic that you're going to stick to now that we're sort of going back to live events and to going back into the office, or?
Yeah, so before COVID, so when we were already living in a very complex world before COVID hit us, with the geopolitical tensions, regulatory circumstances, cyber, health was even also before COVID already an issue, the chronic disease, etc. If you take a look what happened the past year with such a great deal of speed, yeah, people who weren't able to work with computers before COVID are now able to do the things themselves. So the world has definitely changed people. I think a lot of people have learned that they're capable of doing a lot more than they ever thought they could. And so that they also can handle change even better than they could. And of course, we saw that mental well-being was one of those risks and issues which really came along for young, but also old people. So for me, the past years has learned me again that even although I was also in the beginning really challenged by staying at home, by not dressing up every day, it has learned me that, you know, the biggest thing I was really missing was the people. I know that if I work at home, I can be a lot more efficient. You know, you spend very focused time on the things you need to get done. You're able to scale a lot of things up. With Topvrouwen, we used to have events. At those events, we were only able to host a certain amount of people. With all the activities we organized the past year, we were able to invite everyone to the table. And we were able to provide information and share knowledge with everyone who was interested in the topic. And all of those things have been positive. And now getting back to how do we manage it now? It's carefully managing, okay, what's needed? What's a nice to have? What's a need to have? Getting people back to the office. I think the office will become more of a social function than maybe getting the efficiency in the work done. So take a look at, you know, what should be, who should be in the office and why. For client meetings, of course, I think it's crucial, etc. But for some of the tasks, people might be better off doing things at home. And if you take a look at some of our colleagues around the globe, some of the colleagues were traveling 1 to 2 hours every day to get into the office, then 1 to 2 hours to get out of the office, for example, in London. And those people are really pleased now that they can spend more time, quality time at home, not being in a traffic jam, and spending time with their family and children at home. And I think it's been a very positive end. We've even had a colleague, Carine, which was hilarious, who was doing a meeting at home, and then suddenly there was a lamb walking in his kitchen. A lamb, not a dog, not a cat, but a lamb. So he lived outside in the country grounds. And so this video has gone viral around Aon, you can imagine. But the quality of life has become, I think, even better if we're able now, if we're able to maintain a positive way of how to balance this for each and every one of us. I think also topics like, and I may take another topic, is equal parenting will become, and therefore also diversity inclusion will start to become automatically included in our societies.
No, because I mean, like, there are certain American companies, for example, like Twitter, who said, you know, people will never have to come back to the office. What do you think of that?
Yeah, so I think it really depends per company, depends the way you transact business. I have to say that I've been able to get new clients in the past year, but those were based on existing relationships. And what I want to say, what I really missed, I missed the unexpected of the unexpected. And what do I mean with that? So if I go to an event, I know what to see. I know that if I'm going to, to a dinner, okay, I know that I'm going to meet. But what I don't know is the person I might encounter in the lift to that event, or following what might happen in addition, unexpected. And then finding out that he or she who I met in the lift by coincidence knows he or she or does that and that. Those things I miss, because those are things which are sparkling up your day. I think the expected for me is something which is nice, but I think the unexpected is what's always inspired me and sparkled up my day with, oh, surprise, you know, it's really, it's giving you, it can of course also have a negative aspect, but I think the often part for me, it's always been positive. And if you take a look at acquisition of clients and business, I feel that that's more difficult to do by Zoom.
Yeah, no, I mean, I totally agree with you. I mean, I think it's a wonderful tool. I mean, for me, technology is like a tool, you know, and it's like a means to the solution. But I think the energy exchange, exactly what you say, like the unexpected, I think that really makes the world go round. Well, we have a little bit more time for questions, because I'm certain that maybe either in the Netherlands or in the US, there are people who are interested, you know, to ask you questions. So I want to at least open the floor in that sense. I'm not sure if there's anything there. Okay, yeah, there's one question. Have you always worked for the same company?
Yes, I in principle I did. So I'm saying in principle, I started at Bloomers, which was a reinsurance broker in the Netherlands, partly owned by Munich Re in 1990. And Bloomers Reinsurance, the reinsurance department of Bloomers, was acquired by Aon in 1997. And so I moved from a family-owned company to the big corporate Aon. And yeah, it was like ending up in a candy shop, because in such a big company as Aon, I think in all the big companies, nowadays you see a lot of discussion of the youngsters like to be entrepreneurs, and so be it. If you want to be an entrepreneur, definitely become an entrepreneur. But those big, large corporates, you're able to develop yourself in so many different directions. And so I was able to do so. And so I've worked now officially for Aon over 31 years.
Well, that's actually, these days, that's actually quite an achievement, because, you know, I mean, it is so much easier, you know, to when you are being seduced by another company, and, you know, and especially since you are who you are. I mean, there were very, very few women, I think, of your level, that it was probably, you know, you were probably often offered to be able to work for other companies. So, I mean, I think it's amazing that you have been able to be so loyal to your company. Is there anything that you would like to share with us that I have not asked you, but that you would like people to know about you before I wrap it up?
I think the most fun fact for all the US people in this call today is that every time I'm in the US, and the people in the Netherlands know I've been very active for the ALS Foundation, Motor Neuron Disease Foundation in the Netherlands. And during one of those fundraising campaigns, we swam in the canals in Amsterdam. But we decided to actually expand that activity into the New Amsterdam area, into the Hudson River. And that's maybe the most prominent fun fact to tell the US citizens present today. I did swim in that Hudson River, approximately a kilometer, for charity. And each and every US colleague who I come across, anyone from the US, says like, what, did you do that? You're still alive. And yes, I'm still alive. And but that's one of the things which may be fun to mention, totally different aspect.
Well, I mean, I actually think that ALS is how we actually met for the first time, because you were on the board and I actually swam a couple of times with the Amsterdam City Swim. And I do think actually that's how we met as well. So there is another question from from one of our chairmen, Marijn Boender. And he says that this session between us seems to be named after an initiative of Franklin D. Roosevelt. And has FDR or has Eleanor Roosevelt actually inspired your work and approach to life in any way?
Oh, that's an interesting question, especially as at the moment Joe Biden is being perceived as, you know, as much, very much, you know, stepping on the shoulders of FDR. So Eleanor Roosevelt has been a true inspiration for me, and I'm now thinking of. So the quote I like from Eleanor Roosevelt is, "Tomorrow is a mystery, today is a gift, and that's why it's called the present." Yeah. And I really like that quote because it makes you really being aware that you need to live in the now. And so Eleanor Roosevelt, if you take a look at her life, she's been amazing. And if you follow her, but it's I like that quote. So thank you for that question.
Well, that's interesting because you very much liked my payoff on my Oscar Wilde payoff, but the payoff that I used to have on my business card was always, the beauty is in the future of your dreams. You know, that if you dream, that's why I asked you, what are your dreams? Because I think that's really something that Eleanor Roosevelt wanted to teach the world, that, you know, if you dream hard enough, long enough, and you're true to your dreams, that I think that you really make it to the furthest. So I am going to wish you a incredibly good trip tomorrow to Washington, D.C. I wish I was there to accompany you. I think it's going to be a wonderful dinner, and we're very happy to have a live dinner again. And I'm also inviting, you know, everyone, all the audience here to look, because we actually have a wonderful silent auction. Please follow us, you know, the Netherland-America Foundation on LinkedIn. And we're actually having a big gala coming up on the 18th of September in Paleis het Loo, our second Dutch gala, which we're all working hard on very much. And then, of course, on the 19th of November, we will have our 39th, I think, Peter Stuyvesant Gala in New York again, where, well, I'm very much looking forward to that, to seeing all my New York friends again. And I think we should all very much cherish the Netherland-America Foundation, because 100 years is a long time. And if we look back at what has happened in the last 100 years, historically, but also economically, and how the Netherlands and America have always been able to actually support each other. And, you know, I mean, with the whole Fulbright scholarships and, you know, with the whole cultural exchange, I think that the countries are really beneficial to one another. Of course, we as Dutch feel extra proud because we feel that we have founded New York. And so actually, I see two questions. I see another question coming in, and I actually know this person, so I very much want to honor her. I think we both know her. So before I'm going to close it, I'm going to ask you this question. How do you remain supportive of others in your work?
I think that's maybe also the secret of the relationships between the Netherlands and the United States, because it's about being interested in other people. And I actually got so much positive vibes from helping others, and that positivity, the energy, it gives me energy. So I get energy from engaging myself and surrounding me by people and helping them, and that gives me energy, and that energy is also reflected to the others, so they get energy as well. That gives a positive vibe, and that creates more energy. And so hopefully that helps the world truly to back to the why, you know, people, and making it really advance. Annemie, and I think also Annemie Burmers asking this question. Annemie, you know, you're a doctor. This is what you're, you know, I'm so inspired by all those physicians and all those doctors the past years who've helped and put, you know, their personal well-being often aside to help us. That's the same for us, you know, it's about making other people trying to help them. And that's, I think, a very good thing. So thank you for that question.
Okay, well, and I very much hope that you will help me in promoting the Netherland-America Foundation through LinkedIn, because, you know, we would like to have about 10,000 followers by the end of this year. We have 1,000 now, and I think, you know, you and I together, I think we can really move mountains in both countries. And I'm just calling out to the audience, you know, please read our newsletters. I'm going to do many, many more of these interviews, and I really think the time of the women is now. Matriarchal leadership is in the rising. And I think, you know, especially after pandemic, as we all know, the women were hit the hardest all over the world. And I think this is really the moment that women need to support one another and to help each other. And if they hear of board opportunities or within companies that they're looking for new people, I think it's important that we actually try to, you know, keep the door open for other women to actually step in our footsteps. And I think you are exactly doing that. And I'm extremely proud to know you, to call you my friend, and to have been able to interview you today. Thank you, very pleasure. Thank you very much. Thank you to Nat, and I look forward to the trip to the US, and I'll very much. It will be inspiring. Thank you. Okay, thank you.